To AHA, a human among humans. We have one of the best humans I've met today, Alex Silberman. You can see, you can just feel it. You don't even need to hear him. My name is Michael Horan. We're doing a show called Confession of a Sperm Donee. Alice's father has a book soon to come out, Confessions of a Sperm Donor, Anthony Donee, my dear friend. So, let's begin the day you called your father. Tell us what was going on before you called.
I think it was obviously a little bit or around my 18th birthday. It might have been a little bit before. And I got a note in the mail from the woman care clinic. And they said, oh, there's some information at the clinic. And I went and I biked down and I got the information.
Did you know what it would be?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I knew what it was. I knew that it was related, and I was going down to find out in terms of if he had said yes also to the contacting.
Oh, you didn't even know?
I don't think initially I knew. I'm trying to remember back then.
Yes.
But I don't think initially I knew. So I got the paperwork, and then it had a number of his that I don't know if it still worked or anything like that. And they had also alerted him to it as well on his end. And so one day I just was in the kitchen with the phone and gave him a ring, and I left a message for him.
What was the message?
I think he wrote down the message at the time, but I was just like, hey, I think you're my,
No!
Donor. Yeah. It's like, hey, sperm donor, and I'd like to talk to you at first, or possibly meet up, and it's kind of as simple as that.
And what are you feeling at this time?
It's more just like, hey, I got this, I'm gonna do it. I'm sure there's a lot of energy, but it was more just trying not to think about it and just take the action.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always say no and love. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess some of us will think about it and think about it.
Yeah.
So what happens next?
Then he called back, I think, and left a message as well. And then we finally connected up. I might have called him back again, and we connected up, and then we decided to meet right over in Harvard Square, and meet at a little outdoor cafe restaurant that no longer exists, but was right near the Coop, right near the Coop on that side of the street. Yeah.
And what was that like?
It was more like, it was more in my mindset. I don't know what was gonna happen. I think he was probably a little more nervous than me because he didn't know if somebody was gonna be asking for money or what the circumstance was. But Anthony being Anthony, I think he snuck up behind me while he was sitting down and tapped me on the shoulder.
Oh.
Yeah, to be a little tricky. And then he kind of sat down and maybe French fries or buttering of toast, something like that. He wrote it down more clearly as his creative process is, so he would have a clearer description than myself. Yeah.
And you're feeling at this time?
I feel it was kind of more. I didn't know what to expect. Was the general idea?
So you were kind of curious.
I was curious. I was like, I want to at least go and find out, but I didn't try to think past it too much.
I can find my true thought. None of that.
No, it's more, hey, if you can, I can find out this information or find out who this is. I didn't know if it was going to just be a one-time meeting or not. The one thing it did say in the documents that was interesting, I believe it said that he was Irish or that he's born in Ireland. In the documents I got. So that was intriguing. I was like, oh, not in the U.S. I mean, it wasn't that surprising, but it was a little bit like, oh, cool. He wasn't, born in this country.
So you're part Irish?
Yes.
Part Irish Catholic?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't Catholic's the religion part, but I didn't grow up with either one, except culturally a little bit in the Boston area, just because there's so many Irish people,
Yes.
so much Irish culture.
Oh my.
But yeah.
And so, after the meeting is over, how do you feel?
I'm sure there was probably like a little bit sense of relief. I actually did, and it turned out to be like a nice guy with like I think I don't know if we went too deep, but like somewhat decent sense of humor. He was definitely feeling things out. You could see on his end, more pressure on his end, and then also there was like later on more. It seemed like a little more pressure because there was also my sister Kate as well. So, he eventually had like 2 kids coming at him.
You didn't know Kate then?
No, I didn't know if there were any other donors. I think he mentioned to me like a few months later, a little bit later on. Yeah, about Kate. Although I'm trying to remember, because I may have contacted him first, but I don't know if they had met up beforehand or what.
No, I think you were first.
I was first in terms of the contact, probably because of age. But in terms of the actual meetup, there may have been a delay because I was, or a first or second meetup because I was out at Whittier College sometime in that time period. So I was all the way on the other coast.
So you're not overly excited?
No, I was interested in finding out, but it's kind of like you don't know until you meet the person.
I want to be my dad. That's not part of it.
No, I mean, also the other thing was maybe it being a little different. Like I grew up with 2 parents already, so it wasn't like it wasn't like there wasn't another additional person. There was, you know. So there was still a 2-parent household, so it might have been a little bit less, but yeah, teach their own experience.
Well, let's go back now to
yes.
When did you find out that these 2 women who were your parents?
Yeah.
When did you find out that you must have known then, before then, that it must have, when did you find out, are you 3? Oh my, I have a daddy I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, the term was always used sperm donor, too. So the daddy was less in my mind or whatever. But I think I've talked about this before to you, actually, and I think it was just like, it was actually easier to explain, like, well, when kids get a little older, it's probably, I don't know, maybe something at 4, something at 6, but more, probably something around 6, like, where do babies come from? And that's an easier process to explain based on the sperm donation.
Oh my!
Because it's not talking about parents having sex. It's like, oh, I went to the clinic.
Yes.
And that actually, I don't know, in my mind, can make sense to a younger kid.
Then
hey, mommy and daddy got together,
wow, very nice.
And they loved each other a lot. She didn't have to say loved each other a lot or anything like that.
Yeah.
They can say they loved it, my mothers could say that they loved each other, but like, and then we went to the clinic, and then it was very scientific based, so it was actually easier to explain without going into too much detail of what happened. But when we went and got the sperm and this and that, so yeah.
And of course, many of the people, not all of them, but many of the people in your nursery school, the children, had fathers.
I didn't think about it too much. At that age, I didn't think really about other people's parents or anything like that, unless they were my close friend, like John or whatever.
Who didn't,
but I went through the same process, actually, in the same clinic.
Did you bond with him a little?
No, we just happened to make friends, and maybe parents a little bit on that end, but there were a few alternative families.
And John was in nursery school.
He's a year younger than me. Yeah.
Still friends with Alex.
Yeah, at Harvard Yard.
John is also born from a sperm donor.
Yes, correct.
And you remained friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you ever discussed that with him, or?
Yeah, I have discussed
And
that
what-
with him more recently.
But not when you were young.
No. You just get along with who you get along with,
Yes.
and we're, two kids who like to play and wrestle and go sledding and stuff like that.
So there wasn't a big emptiness in your life because you had two parents.
Yeah, two parents who are very involved or overly involved and like little intense and all. There's a lot of energy there.
And there's another book here.
I don't know if there's a room for somebody. I mean, if there was even room for somebody else to even fit in.
So how did? Well, no, I don't want to go ahead yet. Alex, I suggested the book to Alex. Alex, right? He wasn't very enthusiastic. I had two Jewish mothers, but it might be a bestseller. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, who knows?
So
That's
you're
like it's kind of I'm too close to it.
Yes.
I have enough experience with that.
So you're happily growing up
Yeah.
and not feeling a need for a father.
No. I think around when I was 13, 12, there was something about the information, or there was some more slight information mentioned from the clinic.
Wow.
And then I was just frustrated that I couldn't get the information and all that. I think there wasn't. I think the main thing was like, because I was a taller child and just and athletic in certain ways, that like I would try, I would play sports up to a point, but like the second I hit 13 or even before then, I would try to play just sports even with my parents, with one of my mothers growing up, and then it was just like I was just too physically, I was advanced or whatever for it stopped being fun to play tennis with my mother at a relatively young age. Because she didn't really run. She scoots everywhere. For years, and it was, and so it's just like, the physical side of that. If there had been a guy that was more physically capable, that could have been useful, or and certain perspective just continuously, and I jokingly called them the board because they were so consistent that it seemed like they were one entity with two bodies walking around.
And there was no difference between your feeling with your biological mother and your.
I think there's a little bit. No, I think there's a little bit, and I have an older brother and sister, and their biological mother is not my mother, so I think it's natural to be a little bit closer.
Oh, to your biological
to the biological mother, like a little bit in terms of you have common genetics, and sometimes that even comes out a little bit in the way you act, and certain sensibilities and all that. And then I think also she had already them together, but she had also raised two young kids together, so she wasn't necessarily at the time completely. She was going along with what my biological mother wanted, to have a kid at 40, or she had already had two kids.
40, wow.
Yeah. So she was going along with that, Yep.
Okay, so we can go back to you meet Anthony for the first time, and then what happens?
Then, we would meet up for meals here and there, and then I'm sure at some point talk about that we both like the beach or the ocean. So eventually that is, but I mean, I'd have to really look back in terms of events. We started getting closer, and then eventually, shortly thereafter, I went to a family gathering, and I met my grandparents and all, aunts, uncles, and cousins.
What was that like?
It was just interesting fun. There's a lot of people. It was a big Irish family.
Yes.
My Jewish family at that was small. It was that's fun. There were just so many people. Yeah, to learn about. Yeah.
So it looks like you enjoyed it.
I did. Yeah, no, I did, and it was interesting. And and there was no talk about politics, which is pretty regular in my family. So it was different. Also, like not uptight about drinking, whereas my Jewish side of the family is very uptight about drinking. So it was good. It was good to meet them, and it was And
did you feel eventually part of the family?
I feel, yeah, somewhat, but it's like I met him as an adult, so it's a bit different. Yeah. So I feel like I'm, definitely a part of the family, but it's one thing if you grow up together, and it's another thing if you don't. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it seems to me, I'm not sure I'm right about this,
Yeah.
that Anthony made some kind of decision to really put in time to being your friend and in some ways your father.
Well, yeah, but I think it also happened as well, like on just me and him, because we got along, similar sense of humor,
Wow.
tricky kind of mischief.
Yeah.
He introduced me more to writing, and we kind of did that together over meals sometimes. So, no. So I think, the genetics do matter in this case, at least. There was enough in common. Both like to travel in different ways and adventure.
And you
say
got to,
wild things sometimes.
Yes, he's like, and you got to know each other.
Yeah. So
Did you feel like?
But he definitely made an effort.
Yes.
But also, so in some ways, the hard part didn't grow up. It didn't raise us, me or Kate. But the easier part was that it didn't have all this like enmity or issues.
Yeah, well,
because there wasn't the power struggle wasn't there.
Wow, maybe
this
a new way to have a family.
Yeah.
Become, avoid those Oedipal complexes.
Yeah.
As sperm donors.
Yeah.
Is maybe one of the new ways to go. You've heard of trans and bi. I'm a sperm donee.
Yeah, people have all sorts of families and doing different things, and I mean, I think the main thing with anybody, as long as you're there for each other, and
did you have
and
that?
care about it,
Did
care,
you have a sense?
Yeah, and care, and as long as you can get along together, you also don't have to be related,
Wow.
Yeah, but no, blood definitely adds something, and the genetics definitely add something. And then I think the big part of it was also he was living in the area, so like culturally it wasn't so different,
And you had things to do together.
Yeah, and we had things to do together, and we had certain interests together, and then we had stuff that just was different as well. So.
And you didn't have the differences that sons often have with fathers.
Yeah, and we both didn't like authority, so it's like, well, I mean, he probably had more of a problem when I was telling him what to do in the ocean or breathe or to just get in the water sometimes, because he never, he had his issues with his father at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think it's like any guy telling him what to do, any adult guy telling him what to do, but yeah.
So you didn't, oh my.
Yeah.
So you became, it seemed to me, good friends.
Yeah. And I started out, and I ended up calling him father, but it started out as uncle, kind of like a friendly uncle, older guy, fun uncle.
What was do you remember the first time you called him father? Or?
I don't remember the first time. It gradually happened, or occasionally tried it out, and then I was like, all right, as my father, made it easier to describe without going into things in depth. Yeah.
What else can you tell us about it?
I'm trying to think. I think we just had. I don't know. We got along. We had enough in common to make it work. And there was a certain level, definitely a certain level of honesty about, and Anthony, of course, about feelings about things or frustration. So we just shared that on a number of different topics.
So what kind of frustration?
Well, whether it was dealing with semi-romantic situation or frustration or like power dynamics in the society. I think what else would it be?
So you shared romantic.
Well, yeah, I think he invited me over to a party at North Cambridge, and he was there. It was like randomly when I was I met this young Asian woman who was a few years older. I think I was 17 or 19 at the time, and it was a fun party, and I was making out with her, and my sperm donor father was down the way, so that was a little bit weird. But he's like, "Oh, you look like you were having a good time." And I was like, "Yeah." No, I was like, "Oh," he's like, "Oh yeah." I waved you goodbye on the way out. So,
Which most fathers.
well, yeah, it's more a fun uncle. That's the fun uncle side of things and sharing things, and he was always flirting with people. So we had that banter back and forth. In that way, which was fun and kind of lighthearted and not taken too seriously. And then also, kind of being honest about the way thought about the world, but the writing also brought it out. Just kind of sharing writing, and it could just be something as simple as what's happening in this room right now. And I think my writing was kind of like I noticed things about people and somewhat the scenery, and he would notice interactions as well. So I could, so different. We would talk and write about different things in the same situation. But, yeah.
And how honest were well, Anthony? I know my buddy Anthony.
Yeah.
Who would, as a friend of mine said when he heard Anthony left us.
Yeah.
For someone who was so afraid of love, he was more loving than almost any man he ever met.
Yeah, he cared about people a lot. I think part of it was also his therapy practice and having that honesty, in there. But he also had to be careful that he didn't make himself the therapist in situations where he wasn't working.
So he didn't share, at least with me, one of his best friends.
Yeah.
He says, "Dear friend, I love you, Tony. I still feel him around.
Yeah.
Might be joining us now. Hi, Tony."
Yeah.
But he didn't share with, I think, me and other friends. We were part of Finnegan's Wake reading group for 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And people loved him.
Yeah.
But they could feel the guardedness.
Yeah. Well,
they never knew what Tony was. It was more than maybe anybody. You didn't know what Tony was feeling and thinking, and he wouldn't really share even the very difficult times he was having with the last woman he was with for a long time.
Well, yeah, I think that's also common with a lot of men now. It's been of a certain generation of they may share some of those feelings if they do with the woman they're seeing, but they're not necessarily going to share it amongst their male friends.
And you didn't have that with, did you?
No, I would. I mean, I think he would share some things and not others, but I was also, his offspring too. So the different roles, and he would. I could also. I think though myself and Kate, or at least know for myself, like we could see where he was getting like frustrated in that. I think he would be more willing to work it out with us, than sometimes his friends where the egos would be too much.
Work out
problems. Yeah. And when he interpreted something that was an affront to him. Yeah.
And do you remember any? I think
I reminded him of his brother a little bit. His the middle sibling, his brother Patter, a little bit in terms of like mischievous or saying things and just keeping a straight face, but that could be inflammatory to people. And they might actually be hurt, but then you're just kind of gliding along.
Wow, yes, no, he's very mischievous.
Yeah.
Here's an aside.
Yes.
So the first time I meet Anthony's family, they're sitting in his living room.
Yeah.
And they're not talking at all. Not even how's the weather.
Yeah.
It seemed they were extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this. Yep.
And Tony walks in and says, "Okay, everybody, what's the most painful experience you've had in this life?"
Yes, I know. Well, yeah, I think I shared that with him in terms of walking into situations and that are absolutely to us seemingly flat or boring. and being like, all right, what can we do with this? Like, and so then it's not in that situation, at least on my end. I don't know if it was similar to him. It's not so much expressing what's going on with you or your feelings.
No, he wouldn't.
It's more like, all right, let's make something happen. Because my feeling is frustration and boredom.
Yeah, I want
right now.
exciting.
I want some action.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of the time there's not that much going on. So I mean, I don't know if that was something I shared with him, but it could be.
So what about between you and him? Like, I don't think I could share with my father, who even lived with me when I was at University of Chicago.
Yeah.
I was closed.
Yeah.
And he was closed. Yeah. But we didn't have that. But you're in a new generation.
Yeah.
Were mentioned. Did you have that with Donee? You could.
I think it was relatively open. Yeah. I think it was open, but it was also a different generation in terms of his writing, and kind of like I think he wanted to go deeper sometimes, and even sometimes like I would more want to have like a smooth, fun time, or like a frisbee around, or
my
something.
Father
like
that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think sometimes, but he wanted. I think had some in his writing at one point had some idea, or one of his poems about like life's struggle, you know, or what it means when you're this, you know, I've gone through all these things, and I was like, but also is it? I mean, my sometimes frustrated, but it was kind of part of his personality was, but I'm also operating with someone who's a bit ADD or ADHD. And so, like, the attention span to, like, delve into it might start off surface level. It could go deeper, but then also his attention is also, oh, look, there's a woman over there, there's something over there. So it's just like, you know, I'm willing to go deep. I can go deep or whatever sometimes, but I a lot of the time don't do it because I know the person thinks they're present, but in my opinion, they're not.
Wow.
They're not at all. So, you know... And a lot of the time, you're going to go deep if you're with someone, if you're in a more intense situation or you do more intense things. Like when I work in outdoors or something like that, things are going to pop up because you're already active in an engaging situation. And then you share things, you know? So.
But you weren't frustrated or disappointed that you could not share some things. You didn't expect him to be, doesn't sound more than he was. No,
I didn't. And I wasn't, you know, I might have been frustrated about something in the moment, but that had to do with usually something seemingly light, like being late or like attention span or something like that. It's not that he wasn't willing to go there. Yeah. It's just whatever was.
So it sounds like a very beautiful relationship.
Yeah, it was pretty open, and you know, and then you know, pushed each other's buttons as anyone does.
Give an example, or?
Like just being like, "Come on, why aren't we in the water?" Like get in the water because he also had his injuries too. So when I was younger, I was also going at a rate of speed that was not his rate of speed completely. But then mentally, he'd be talking faster or going at a faster rate of speed than me sometimes in terms of verbally or mentally at the time. So. Both dynamics are present, but all his past injuries were definitely rough on him, and then, you know.
Well, two things. One, I appreciate your friendship with him more, and him more, because I knew he was working hard to be your friend, but now I have a sense of how beautiful that relationship. So, and you can tell me if you don't want to talk about this.
All right, what do you got, Michael?
You know what's coming. Maybe.
Come on.
So when he leaves us, this last year, Labor Day.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I mean, situations like that, and I think this is general. It's more just you're reacting. You're reacting and trying to do, like getting called super early in the morning by, I believe, Mary.
His sister.
Crying and.
But treating you like family.
Well, definitely.
Big time.
Well, also it was like because Anthony would be intensely social. And be like, life of the party, what's going on? And then he'd be like, I'm drained, all that energy, and then be away for a month or, a few weeks or whatever. it was a lot of trying to figure out, because he lived on his own, like just what was going on. You know, it was kind of dealing with the unknown.
What a good son you are, understanding your father.
Well, yeah, well, it's like I understood the person he was, and then because he'd call me up, I'd call him, oh, where at? I'm in California, I'm in New York, I'm somewhere else. Oh, and this is going over there, and I got the hotel credits for this and that. So yeah, I knew who he was, and I mean, but yeah, I mean, it ended up being myself, Lenny, and Pauline, his two of his other siblings, over at the house, just trying to figure out what's going on. And all credit to Martin Hanley, because he had been there when Lenny and Pauline first came in with the police busting open the door and all that. And so Martin Hanley was really helpful, as well as Lenny and Pauline. And we just got some of his files out that day, and Lenny was calling up the detail cleaners to kind of go in shortly thereafter and clean up the place. But we got some files, I believe, that first day. But I mean, especially when someone dies unexpectedly or all of a sudden alone, you're just reacting, kind of running on adrenaline and reacting. You're not really thinking too much about how you feel. Your heart rate might be up. You might be like, oh, what's going on? But you know, I believe he had already been taken away by the time I had gotten there. So they were more there for that part of it. But I was, you know, even earlier, you know, in the day, they got like no sleep. And then I was there in the early morning, kind of just being like, all right, what's going on? Just signing off on, just waiting around, signing off on paperwork, just trying to make heads or tails of the situation and trying to gather information in terms of, as best we could, what may have happened. Yeah. So you're just kind of reacting and just running somewhat on autopilot. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And since then, which is not so long ago,
Yeah.
in
September, yeah.
September to now,
Yeah.
what has your experience been? I had the experience, I think I told you this, of going to the place where Tony and I used to go, the Arnold Arboretum.
Yep.
Sitting, I think I'll sit now. Let's see. Wow. Yes, it's funny doing this with with you. So I'm sitting on the stone slab
Yes.
in the Arnold Arboretum, and we can see the whole skyline,
Yeah.
Boston skyline. And I tell Michelle, I used to sit, Andy used to take me here. It was great. You probably did that with you so many times.
Yeah.
Taking you to places.
Yeah, yeah. And we went to the Arboretum as well. Yes.
Yes. And I experience or imagine, whatever you want to say, but it at least feels real. Tony's spirit is spread over the whole skyline. And it feels very comforting. And I went back again with Michelle. And I think I heard words that were totally un-Tony-like. Like, you're doing well, Michael.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like.
Tony wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Oh, good to see you. Tony might say, "Why do you do? Leave me alone. You call before you come."
Oh yeah.
But it was
that.
very comforting.
Yeah.
And I can even now I can. We'll use the word imagine.
Yeah.
Him. This will sound funny too, but shedding a tear as he hears you talk about it.
Yeah.
And you being Alice probably have none of these experiences, right?
I don't know. I wouldn't say in that way. I mean, there's memories, or it's sad overall. But I mean, we discussed the will and all. I mean, him dying. I think I've said this before, but it, you know, in one manner it was surprising, but with all his ongoing health issues, it wasn't that surprising.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it wasn't that surprising, and he had said stuff for my heart or feeling like he had been close, not around that time period, but in the past number of years. Yeah.
Did he discuss his lymphoma with you?
Yeah, like a little bit, and talked about, oh, they're plugging me into this thing and injecting me and this and that, and he had issues with that, but he didn't go that, not regularly deep with it. No, not the day, more just like what happened, or if he was frustrated, in terms of something, the way that they were treating him. But he also was like not let like people like, oh, I'll drive you or anything like that. No, stay out of that, stay away from. I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it myself. Was more his attitude.
I'll deal with it myself.
Yeah,
So
seemingly, yeah. He didn't. I never used those words, but that's kind of what I got.
no, his brother Peter said something like that
Yeah.
at the.
Yep. Yeah.
He's-
Well, also, I think it's also though, and I experienced this sometime, not to this, I don't think the same degree, but it's also like people can be a lot, and you're like, and you just go, and sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes people actually help, but sometimes also, at least maybe you're thinking, it's also like, maybe it's easier to go through it alone sometimes for some people, not everybody, but sometimes it's either like let me just rest, especially if you have a lot of pain and injuries. It's just like someone getting upset about how you're doing
Makes it even
makes it tougher. Yeah. So I think I don't know that would definitely be the case, but I think all I need, it might also be the attitude, all I need is one more person worrying about me and getting in my business when I'm someone who values my private time. Yeah.
So he didn't discuss, certainly with me, and
Yeah.
apparently not with you,
Yeah.
any of the decisions he was making.
He didn't discuss any of the decisions in the moment, no, but he had written out still outline of a plan of what he wanted to happen as he got older and potential caretaking and all that. But nothing in terms of actually caring with him at the time. Or
No, like
being
I
involved.
have lymphoma,
Yeah. No.
Michael or Alex.
No.
I'm going to go off of it, the treatment.
No, he told me that he was somewhat going off or taking a break, but it wasn't like it was. I don't know that he used the word. He may have. I'm trying to remember if he used the word lymphoma or not.
Oh,
But he was more like he more got frustrated with the treatment, and then he wanted to do more Eastern medicine. So he told me he was doing that, but it wasn't like nailed down. Like it's not like this is my medical plan. I'm going off, and it's kind of like I've had enough out there dealing. I'm trying something over here, and I'm not doing this over here.
but
Over
there
here
wasn't Alex, what do you think about this? What do you think? There was
No,
no.
I wouldn't say it's. He could outlines. He might say, "Oh, what do you think?" But he,
Oh, he will-
but he wouldn't give you the detailed information on medical records about what was going on for you to actually react to
What was really happening?
what was really happening or to know really happened. So
Yeah.
you could say what you thought, but you're getting surface level information,
Oh, I
so it
wasn't-
might be a surface
Oh, well, you
level.
got more than I.
Yeah, but he didn't do it that much, and I wasn't always here too.
Yeah.
I lived a lot of different places, or I would be away. So, I would get when I saw him, you get bits and pieces on what was going on at the time, a little bit.
But it seems like it didn't bother you that he didn't really say, Alex, I'm going to go off treatment. What do you think? This is what I plan.
Well, in some ways it's a bit frustrating. But he's someone who's gonna do his own thing always.
Yes,
That kind of comes with the territory. With him it was also a balance. Like it would also be like how strong do you come on with your opinion to him, where he just says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Where are you overstepping your boundaries? Because if you come on too strong with him, I think especially as a guy, but no, as a woman too or whatever, he would push back right away.
Mhm.
So that was always part of the deal too. So not necessarily easy to strike a balance. And he was also somewhat suspicious of Western medicine. And you know, and some of the treatment for cancer makes you feel shittier too, or worse, or worse too. So, you know, if a Western doctor or someone's saying, "Oh yeah, do this," and then you're feeling worse and worse, or they're giving you more and more of it, and not watching, and clearly not watching the amount of, lack of better terms, poison they're putting into you, and you don't think they're being careful about it, and you're not seeing close enough to results and a positive effect from the results in a soon enough timeline, you might just go, screw you. You're not, that's the feeling of a lot of hospitals when you go and you don't necessarily feel respected, unless you're paying a lot of money to the doctors, and especially in healthcare, you don't feel respected by the Western medical system. You don't feel like you're treated well. There's a lot of other patients, they don't really have time for you. And it's like, I'd rather have my own independence, you know, and be able to be in control of my life, you know, and have a quality life, rather than just have people hovering over me and not respecting me.
I could feel your respect. I was respect for him and his freedom.
Yeah.
I might rethink it after talking to you.
Yeah.
Angry that he didn't share more of his decision making.
Well, yeah, I hear that. I hear that, and that makes sense that you're frustrated on that end, and there could have been potentially better medical advice and all that. But I mean, you can only really, I mean, it can only, from my perspective, engage so much, or engage with someone who's willing to. So,
his brother.
Yeah.
You were there, of course, at the funeral for the family. The services before the big one at.
Yeah, and you're talking about Patter, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
That strange story.
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
It was about. He started talking.
Yeah.
About Frank Sinatra's.
Yeah, oh, I did it my way. Yeah.
I did it my way.
Yes. No, that makes sense.
He told us that Frank Sinatra paid Paul Anka.
Yeah.
A lot of money to write the song.
Yeah.
And Sinatra, I think, sang it in one or two takes, maybe one take.
Yeah.
And it became his signature song.
Yes. Yeah.
And Peter Anthony's younger brother.
Yeah. Oh, well, they're both his younger brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peter said Sinatra hated that song.
Yes.
He thought it was so self-indulgent.
Yeah.
I did it my way.
Yeah.
And then he sat down.
Yeah.
And I wonder, why on earth is he telling this story?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
It took me about a month or two.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Tony.
Yeah.
And Patter said Sinatra felt it was too self-absorbed, too self-centered to just do it my way.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more Jewish.
Yeah.
Maybe Irish too.
No, I think I know, because the rest of the family is different than Anthony. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a sinus cancer that I'm going to have operated on.
Yeah.
But I went with my dear beloved wellness nurse, Michelle.
Yes.
My beloved brother is listening in from New Hampshire.
Yes.
And so it's a group. And his wife, who is my sister.
Yeah.
Elise. And so it's a group decision, really.
Yeah.
Of what to do.
Yeah.
And I even made the decision myself this morning. But I knew they would.
Yeah.
That it was my choice which surgeon to take.
Yeah.
And they told me that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just a different way of decision making, you know? That's all I see it as. You're two different people, and you have your different ways of operating.
Yes. But I think, as Anthony's brother Peter said, to do it too much to an extreme.
Yeah.
Of just doing it your way without conversation with people who care about you can really make you take wrong turns.
I hear you, but I think I respect both of your decisions in your own
What
way.
a good son.
I don't
Look at this.
I don't put that on, and I also, I mean, maybe it's genetically somewhere. I also know how. I mean, I'll hold back on the cursing because we're on CCTV, but
Oh, you can,
no, it'll
okay.
get bleeped out or whatever.
Okay.
It causes them problems usually. I know.
Okay.
I mean, and having some similarities, although differences in Anthony. I think there was a self-absorption and too much doing this way. I'm in some agreement, more of a middle ground on it, but also for some people and their personalities, it's just like having a lot of people around that intentionally and up in your business and your decision making
Yes.
is infuriating.
Especially
It's
since
so, and when you're the one who's got a good chance of
Yes.
dying in this situation and nobody else does, and everybody and
He's telling you
and
stuff,
you got to
yes.
understand
I
also
understand.
also and Ron, he grew up with all the siblings, everybody constantly around.
Yes.
So you had to. So there's probably the feeling of I have to fight for my
Yeah,
independence.
yeah.
I gotta.
And he wasn't the
I
oldest. He
gotta. I
wasn't
gotta
the-
make in the middle. I gotta.
I
Not or
understand.
more the old,
What a
towards
good
oldest.
son.
Yeah, but
What a good son.
yeah,
Understanding.
no, I mean, I get, not to the, I think the same extent, but you can also, though, I think a lot of men get isolated as they get older and
Yes.
go off their own, and hopefully it's less likely to happen to a number of women, but people get isolated in their own way. Yeah.
Yeah, but we love Tony.
Yeah, but
And he still wouldn't.
but there has to also be maybe a certain kind of trust, and also everybody doesn't have to share the same amount. You're someone who loves to share. Not everybody does.
Okay.
Not everybody does.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Like father, like your son.
Well, yeah, and it's like I'm okay with sharing, but then there gets to a point where it's like, no, I was like, I don't really care what you have to say about this on my end too, and that might be. It was like, that's none of your business. You might think it's your business, but it's not. Like, and that's just that comes down to your personal opinion.
And I discovered
And
when
it has repercussions. It's one thing if you're making the repercussions and not willing to face the consequences. But if you're willing to face some of the consequences, I'm not saying that necessarily justifies it, but it's a little bit more honest.
we both agree that there's a line. I mean, with this cancer, and I've had others before.
Yeah.
Everybody and his grandmother has something to say about it.
Yeah.
Do magnets,
Yeah.
change your diet,
Yeah.
and some of those stuff doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And they push it. They're hurt
Yeah.
if you don't do what they say.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, part of the issue is it could also be that it could have been a successful strategies in other areas of his life, of being able to endure pain or endure something, and then come out of it hopefully more confident or better off when he was in younger years. So part of it could be he could have had success at times using this methodology.
I understand.
And it doesn't mean that it necessarily worked at the time, but, it depends. And also you get into habits, he lived alone, and you live alone, but there's more people around him.
Well, no, I have a roommate.
You have a roommate, more so, and there's more people in the house you're regularly interacting with
Yes.
at this point, too. So.
So, we still have 8.5 minutes to sum it up.
Yeah.
So you knew Anthony from 18 to 34, your age, yes? 16 years.
Yeah, I guess it's 16. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was like 14 at the time.
And that's
but,
a lot.
Yeah. It's probably a little, in terms of less because, I saw him at the beginning and I guess I did see him when I was 18, but I was away at college shortly and, I was also, I went back to school. I lived a lot of different places, so.
And stayed in touch.
And stayed in touch, yeah, no, definitely.
And wanted to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You,
There's nobody like Anthony.
Wow.
And the sense of humor, I think, is really what held it together. The banter, the sense of humor, just the always, you know, it's like a lot of guys' close relationship. The first hour or 2 hours even could just be banter and nonsense, topical stuff, and then it took to get the banter out of the way to talk to anything about more serious. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it makes me sad. I could have been a sperm donor, but I chose not to.
Hey, Michael, you
What
never
about
know.
you?
You could still be. Maybe you never know if the guy
Wow,
gets
they
left.
take you could be.
I could be, but you know, but I'm more. I think I'm more open than Anthony was to have someone
Family?
have a family. You know,
Yeah.
I'm more open to
Wow.
that. I'm not against. I may be
This
against.
is an advertisement.
I may be
This
against.
man is available.
That is true, but especially if you're not in the Boston area.
If
you
you're
know?
Now, don't apply if you're.
If you apply, especially if you're from Belarus, Venezuela, Mexico, if you're into punk rock, maybe photography, you know, I got
This
my
is-
preferences, but
This
you
show
never know.
is turned into Match.com.
But yeah, no, I think I'm more open to it, and I think even as challenging as it can be at times, I think I had an easier relationship than Anthony did in terms of with my own parents, in terms of relatively close relationship and supportive and all that. I think it was easier, you know. I've definitely had an easier time with that, and some of it might just be generationally too.
And do you feel his family is your family?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
But there's some distance. But I always also, in my mother's side of the family, always had people who were not always necessarily blood related, but like knowing my brother and sister-in-law from a young age when they were just dating my brother or sister. You know, there's that, and then other people like. Having two moms, blood was not necessarily the defining factor of how close you are to somebody, you know.
Love it.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, no, I like everybody pretty much in Anthony's side of the family, but like in some way, there's aspects that I'm closer to you in some ways, or that we've talked more or deeper conversations sometimes than Anthony's side of the family. And
Yeah, that was hard for him too.
well, and also Martin Hanley too, because sometimes there's parts that Anthony didn't have that, like in terms of the ease and openness that you have, that's easy to talk to. People have different personalities, and then like Martin Hanley was in terms of like joking and like not taking things seriously and not getting angry. Anthony would get angry more easily than Martin Hanley.
Yes.
So that was easier to talk to Martin in some ways, and that might have been challenging. But nobody and nobody probably should be everything to anyone else. You need other people in your life.
Look at this wise man.
Screw that idea of solo romantic love that everybody's gonna fill you up. That's like a great way to pave the road to hell.
Wow.
and eat each other alive while you're
It takes
at
a
it.
village to date this man.
Yeah, I don't know about that. No, it doesn't take it all. I just don't need everything from one person. I mean, we can connect, and then you can get things from other people.
Yes.
You know,
Well, from the family.
and from your own time, and individual time, and solo time, not being around anybody. Too.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're here. We're about to wrap it up. I don't know how we will do that. I love this conversation.
Well, I mean,
getting to know
we're
you
definitely not
better.
going to wrap it up with a condom. That's not what Anthony did while he was sperm doning. So hey.
No.
Anyway,
That's
what were
our
you
man-
saying, Michael? It's a cheat
That's our mantra. We're not going to wrap this up.
We're not going to wrap it up tonight. You
Yeah.
know, you got to be open to the world's experiences and diseases and everything. You know, life's going to come at you, and you know, you got to get some experience somehow.
So how would we? Boy, it makes it beautiful though
Yeah.
to be a sperm donee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very moving hour.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's you gotta some song that's been written recently, and probably other songs. It's just like Anthony. It's like you gotta lean into life. You gotta go out and experience it.
Wow.
You know, you gotta throw yourself into things, even if you're gonna fall through a bunch of stuff in a construction accident. You know, for better or worse, sometimes that's how you learn things.
That's what happened to Anthony.
Yes.
So I was going to call this show Confessions of a Sperm Donee.
Yeah.
Because I gave the title to Anthony for his book,
Yeah.
which is going to come out. You're taking care of that.
Yeah.
Confessions of a Sperm Donor.
Yeah.
But I'm tempted, but I don't think it has the same ring.
Mm-hmm.
How wonderful it is to be a sperm donee. It doesn't have that ring.
No, I
No.
think it's more,
So we might keep that.
yeah.
That
I think it's another memoriam, if you will.
Another what?
Memoriam of a sperm donor.
Oh, of a sperm donee.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a sperm donor. But,
So what? This is
Yeah.
the dumbest question of the hour.
Oh, let's go, Michael.
What advice do you give to sperm donors and sperm donees?
Off the bat, don't expect anything. It's like anything.
That's how you did so well.
Don't expect it, and it's like a lot of things. It's just like be in the present moment. I think it's tougher, and the toughest in romance it's like don't extrapolate that something's going to happen. You can have that thought and potentially express it to the other person, but just especially when you're meeting up for the first time, you're meeting a person, you don't know who they are, and just kind of go from there and give yourself a chance to get to know the other person. That's all.
My mother was adopted and spent a good part of her life trying to find her real biological parents,
Yeah.
which she never really did,
Yeah.
alas. So this is how it works so well. So you both contributed,
Yeah.
both you and Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
to making this, what seems to me, forgive me for romanticizing it,
Mm-hmm.
but a wonderful relationship.
Yeah.
Between father and son.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow. Well, thank you, Alex Silberman. Any last words? We have 35 seconds.
My thought about Tim is, hey, just remember to always flirt with life.
Whoa! My father likes that. Wow. Well, he'll be back interviewing me in 2 weeks. We'll find out what that means. Thank